everyone. We've got a book club coming in here, so I'll just let them Thank you everyone for being here tonight. It's been a long semester. It's been a long couple weeks for a lot of us in the O'Connor sphere, so I'm really glad to be here with friends, some new, some old, and some new to Milledgeville, and some frequent flyers to Milledgeville. I am Jessica McQuain. I'm the programming coordinator at the Flannery O'Connor Institute for the Humanities. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight for this poetry reading. And I'm going to introduce someone that we're excited to have with us, Charles Farmer. He's actually a former student of Sarah Gordon, and he's also a music critic. He's written for Creative Loafing, Record Plug, Sound and Soul, Pop Culture Press, and Devil in the Woods. He's currently writing a book about DB Records, the Atlanta music label that released inaugural records by groups like the B-52s, Pylon, and Love Tractor. Charles Farmer currently lives and teaches English in Atlanta. Come on up,
Charles. It's an honor to be here among so many lovers of the written word, and like many of you here, I can thank Dr. Gordon for providing me with that first meaningful experience with poetry, with Flannery O'Connor, and beyond. Of course, many of you here are familiar with her accomplishments outside the classroom. Dr. Gordon, professor emerita at Georgia College, and recipient of the Governor's Honors Award in Humanities, has garnered a reputation as one of the world's foremost O'Connor scholars, writing 2 books about Flannery O'Connor, Flannery O'Connor, The Immediate Imagination, and A Literary Guide to Flannery O'Connor's Georgia. She edited the Flannery O'Connor Bulletin, the Flannery O'Connor Review, which she founded, and Flannery O'Connor in Celebration of Genius. She was also the chair of GC's internationally renowned O'Connor Symposium. In addition to her scholarship, she published her first book of poems, Distances, in 1999. In 2022, she published her long-awaited second collection, The Lost Thing. And of course, we're here tonight to celebrate the newest one, 6 White Horses. We have this, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. My copy, I would ask you to autograph it, but it's already well annotated and well loved. All right, cool. Her resume is impressive, if not imposing, but I knew her first as my modern poetry professor way back in 1998. A couple of days ago, she emailed me asking, "Are you ready for Thursday?" And it's been decades since I was her student, but I was still visited by that old anxiety. Her question hit me like a reminder about an upcoming due date for an essay. She still has that hold on me. You have to understand she was an icon in industry among us English students. Through no fault of her own, there was something elusive about her, something beyond the realities of Milledgeville. I couldn't imagine her concerning herself with mundane nuisances like groceries or bills or shopping lists or 441. When she told the class she purchased a new car, a VW Beetle, right?
Right.
I felt like someone had demolished the 4th wall. Part of me thought she simply materialized on campus. As my teacher, she both inspired and terrified me, not because she was cruel or unreasonable, because her love for subject matter was so complete. As much as I love the humanities, I was frightened to give my life to something my family considered a pastime. I wanted to be like her, to have opinions, to draw lines in the sand, to read and listen and love with urgency. If she taught me anything, it was that it's acceptable to live my life as a devotee of the arts. So she terrified me in that respect, but that wasn't why she made me cry the first time. Story. I reminded of her, I've told this more than once, and I call it my conversion narrative. It centers on a class early in the semester when she read aloud Ezra Pound's translation of The River vs. White, a letter. I began to cry somewhere along the lines of, "They hurt me, I grow older." That line break waylaid me. It felt like real life. But what else could I do but lower my head in tears? And what else could I do but give myself to words? And the second time I cried was James Dickey's hospital.
I knew, remember that.
So since then, I've had a life full of books and more good cries, and students of my own. Of course, my story is not unique. Dr. Gordon taught at Georgia College for close to 30 years, inspiring countless students to read, write, and in many cases teach with a purpose. And today, when I'm faced with some great inflated request or an administration's attempt to diminish the curriculum, I always think, WWDGD, what would Dr. Gordon do?
Yes.
And I sleep without guilt because I've done the right thing. Again, I'm honored and excited to be here, to have the chance to hear Dr. Gordon read her latest, a collection that finds her again kicking against the limits. Writing about memories threatens a dangerous, easy slide into sentimentality, but these poems never condescend to sepia-tone nostalgia. They're bruised, calloused, and grateful for and baffled by the mystery of it all. And like Pound's lines, they are my life. So thank you so much.
I do remember his time. He sat right in the middle row in the very back seat. And I looked up when I read the hospital window, and there he was. And he came, I thought something was wrong with him. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be back. And I think there's some people on Zoom that I'm hoping I'll see virtually or vicariously. And I want to thank my friends, Jane Hudson and Ron Balthazar. Ron's a former student of mine, who are my chauffeurs and my pals, my Athens pals. We have a great time together, and they have been so kind twice now to deliver me and take me back. We're coming anyway. And Andy Irwin and Ron are old friends. Many of you know Andy from his antics. And so we're just I'm glad to see all of you. And Nancy J, back in the back. I brought the first book I had in a long time, published in 2022. Something just fallen, yes. Nancy did the cover for this book. So I wanted you to recognize her. She came all the way from also, I want to thank Mercer University Press, which is a wonderful, small press, wonderful to work with. This is my second book with them. My first book, a long time ago, was a women's press in New York City, but I much prefer working in the South. I mean, with editors in the South. So, the cover of this book is done by Jeannie Tomanek, who is an artist out of Marietta, Georgia, and she's extremely interesting and talented. And I recommend you, she did the cover of Anya Silver's book, which came out before Anya died, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe. Anyway, she's done a lot of book covers, and I asked her to do this after she read the manuscript, and she very obligingly gave me a wonderful cover. Very fun stuff. And I'm sorry Alice Fryman couldn't be here tonight. Alice is not feeling well. So Bruce Gentry is somewhere out there in cyberspace watching us. And I'm grateful to Bruce for the reception that he has given us tonight, and there'll be some time afterwards for us to eat, meet, greet, and I'll sign your books. I've already signed some books. And the books are still, I think, out in the foyer or out there in that important place for say Barnes and Noble selling. Okay, so I've had some thoughts about what I was going to read tonight, and some of the poems are a little bit close to me emotionally, so I decided not to read the one for Lucy Underwood, for example. I don't think I can get through that. She was my friend for many, many years, and she would be here tonight. She probably is here somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading that, but I'm going to start out with the first poem in the book, which I think is an apt beginning. I'm trying to lasso language, and so the first poem, as David Kirby pointed out, is kind of an indication of what the whole book is about. Nothing to hold on to. When the lasso of language misses its mark, falls limp in the dust, the horse gets away, gallops triumphantly out of sight, and there's nothing to connect the horse to you, you to the horse, nothing to hold on to. You see photos of those boys in India who ride the tops of boxcars, their bare feet pressing the steel, an arm reflexively clutching the air and steady the ballast that is the body. Or that first ship, way back when, boldly sloshing away from the shore, tethered only to the unfathomable. I'm going to read a poem now called The Winds, and it's wind, W-H-E-N, not winds, like things that grow on your face or something. This is a little bit longer, so bear with me. The winds. When the deaths reach 10,000, we tuck in our weapons. We cease to shout. When the water evaporates, the empty cistern cracks in the heat. A sudden cleavage, dry from dry, leaving nowhere to catch the rain, nowhere. When the grass begins to green, we gather the lambs and look them in the eye, marking one of them for the altar. When the talk stops, we know it's 20 before or 20 after. When we decide to nap, the noise begins. An atonal, arrhythmic banging that turns out to be inside the house, inside the body, nothing we can sing to or scan, frightening us maybe to death. When the power fails, we light a lantern or just sit in the dark, the hearts covered bare, the clock stopped or just pretending to stop, forcing us to sit still, to listen. When the little snake dies, we toss its limp length into the woods or bury it and say we're sorry for the role in the drama some time ago, which we wrote. When the lovemaking ends, we pretend to sleep, instead considering all that did and did not happen. When we find what we are looking for, we hold it. After a while, we relax our grip. We cannot explain how it is that when the guest arrives, all the joy runs out of the bowl lickety-split. How it is that hunger vanishes when we are sick with love and returns after we say the vows, fracturing the food supply, leaving nothing to share. We cannot explain. When words fail, we flail our arms like the shipwrecked, leaping and dancing the calisthenics of rescue to sky and sea, cartoon figures desperate to be saved or understood. When the planes pass overhead, we pick up our rifles, sighting the threat in the crosshairs, glancing at one another to see who will be first to pull the trigger. Like swarms of gnats, the winds encircle us, fly into our eyes, our open mouths. We wince and spit. We seek cover, to hide away in some place of plain and simple utterance. A cave, a trench, a windless, unstrung land without contingent or history, with no before at all. Okay, now I'm going to read one of those in Salvation South. You all know, if you know a bit or Southerner, you probably know Salvation South. This is a kind of different, one of a different tone. And it's about, jumping rope. You know, it's called Point of Entry. These little cat markers that my cousin, bless her, sent me. You know, I'm a cat person. So I had these little markers. And the cats, and they're all over the place. Leaving a cat trail. Okay, this is Point of Entry. The rhythmic slapping of the rope on the ground. Two girls whipping it round and round. Rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. All in together, girls. How do you like the weather, girls? Of course, an eager beginner should run in exactly on the beat, for she who falters is lost, ruled out, shoved aside, maybe even hit on the head by the rope, or embarrassed to be tangled in it. portentous perhaps, a debut of sorts, learning when to enter, interrupt, how to say what and when, to whisper, the front door's locked, but you can come in the side. Learning when to change your vote, raise your hand, when to allow the lingering ship out of quarantine, the migrants to cross over the rope and into the fields, where, through hallways, hangars, customs, ports, to place it, name it, the sentryless entry, the boltless door. Just thinking about getting whipped by that rope, you know. When you try to jump in there, and your legs were bare and you got smashed. Another one that has a kind of homely quality is family lines. And I hope you'll recognize the lines when you hear them. Some of us know these lines very, very well. Family lines. When I left for school with a spot on my shirt, my mother said, "That won't be noticed on the galloping horse." My father, in the shower, was singing, "Shall we gather at the river?" and never heard me leave the house. "That's enough to make a preacher lay his Bible down," Mother whispered, leaning over the sink as she scrubbed the pot with the frightening news. The Asian War, with the cross of Jesus going on before. My brother was called, not an especially Christian soldier, and shortly afterward, Daddy left the church, provoked by peevish souls and petty grievance, but mostly furious with the Almighty. Melancholy set in, a quotidian darkness we all felt, near and far, grown children not grown, babies of the heart, anxious, turning over glasses of tea at dinner, scorching shirts with a hot iron. Mother said she felt like the dog's hind leg, splitting a silence so thick you could cut it with a knife. Truth is, we couldn't say. Tempers rose. My father had ceased, leaning on the everlasting arms. Sweet Jesus. Well, we put some water somewhere. Where did he go? Oh, here he is. I need to sing a little bit. That's what I always say when I answer the phone and my voice is creaky. I always say, "Oh, I haven't sung today." So now she's singing. Okay, I do want to read a poem that is about the eternal absence that is death, and it's called "Without," and it appeared in Southern Portrait Review fairly recently. Without. A while ago, it was the shadow at the window, the rustling you heard under the bed. Now the wind presses in, unsettling the drapes. In come fear and shivering, the cold air, and with them the certainty you'll never see her again, not on this earth. In the stricken look of the ones who receive your news, you see pity, your own unbelief. You knock fiercely on grief's door, seeking a word, afraid to enter, unwilling to leave. The comforters crowd around, winding the sheet. The ritual unfolds as it must. Soon the line breaks for you. You take your place. The words of the faithful fall at your feet. You step over and around them as others before you have done. One giant step forward, 2, 3, without. Well, here's one of my favorite poems. It's really silly. And in a way, it's not silly. And it's going to be long. It's going to have 3 parts. And they all have to do with the title, which is an assortment of astonishing impersonations. Some of this is personal, I must say. The last part is more about writing. I might tend to write about writing sometimes, we all do. So an assortment of astonishing impersonations. 1. When I was a child, mid-century last, every year the white men of certain standing held a minstrel show, dressing up in black suits or even tuxedos, creating a decided funereal look, and smudged their faces so black their pink lips painted large. Their pink lips looked painted large. Before the show they posed, smiling widely into their mirrors, turning this way and that, offering their wives the chance to be kissed, or bussed, as that intimacy was often called, to partake of their charcoal darkness. The ladies feigning horror at this crossing of the line, the violation of the taboo. The auditorium filled fast. 3 tiers of rising bleachers creaking with the nervous weight of that semicircle of white eyeballs. The grinniest grins you ever saw. Yet to my dismay, my father, the interlocutor, remained serious and quiet. He was the straight man, the instigator, his job to elicit from those simple-minded darkies, Brother Tambo, Brother Bones, and Zip Coon, their foolishness to the boundless glee of the audience. And Jim says to Huck, "Yet they say Solomon the wisest man that ever lived. But what use is half a child?" 2. At Halloween, after school, the fair assembled on the playground. Face painting was not then a thing, though mothers in costumes offered their wares. We were all white middle schoolers, learning the continents, multiply and divide, and separating subjects, verbs, and modifiers on clean, confident lines across the page. How odd and amusing then to find my own mother, a scarved and bejeweled gypsy, behind the white sheet of the fishy booth. We were to select a rod, nothing more than a small branch of a tree with a string on its end, and with great expectation, fling it over the sea of the sheet and pull in what we caught. We held our collective breath. But somehow the catch, a small plastic doll, a crayon, or an eraser, was never to match the glamour of my mother's overpainted lips, her golden hoop earrings, long full skirt, and that bolero blouse, low cut, almost revealing her cleavage, her untamed beauty, and another life altogether. 3. So what if a poet decides to get in the head of another poet who's dead and presume to live her quotidian life, even as she read in the paper in a comfortless rocker on the porch, or prayed in the local church, stared at the bloody sunset, or gossiped with friends, and then tell it all in a voice that could be hers? Or what if a poet places on purpose the passionate letters of his ex, verbatim, in a poem, and says it's so, and defies friends and others who urge him not to, who warn him of theft, and bad taste, and distorting her in their distressing, tempestuous life together? What if the poet places his own mother in his poem, with her pursed lips and prejudice? And what if we come to believe him and hate her? What if the interlocutor and the gypsy exist only on these pages, as this poet contrives them? Just consider someone with designs of your life, someone creating in you the style of the day, clothing your thoughts, tucking in and letting out the wardrobe of your being with what that someone wants or needs for you to be. Where? and with only the paltriest fabrics, most careless stitches, the tailor's capricious whim, astonishing impersonation indeed. The last part refers to some folks who have, wrote a couple of things, some folks who have assumed to get inside the mind of Flannery O'Connor and be her. And another allusion in there is to Robert Lowell's use of Elizabeth Hardwick's letter in one of his poems, and his friends, including Elizabeth Bishop, told him it was not the thing to do, but he did it anyway. I mean, it's a terrible thing that we do, to impersonate and assume and take unto ourselves other people's lives. So it is. All right, is this for a little comic relief? Ready for it? Okay, this is a poem that's never been published. You can probably tell why. It's a tribute to the resilient, reproachful roach. If you live in the South, you know the roach. And what to your wondering eye should appear, a leg as fine as a hair emerges from the baseboard. A minuscule cabaret for your guests. You fear the worst, and you're right. Roach. You glimpsed him earlier, steadfastly holding up his edge of the frame. Now he crackles his small root out of hiding again into your line of sight. Everybody's. You want to change the subject. Raise all eyes heavenward. You point out the new painting, its delicate shades, anthracite sky. You are babbling madly. The beast encroaches, full of himself. Coca-Cola, or maybe bourbon brown. He's a mobile alert, a blot on the screen, an error on the page, and he can fly. Even descend from the ceiling onto your fresh white cheeks. Dare you to strike. He reproduces, of course the filthy things do. Little rusty babies on the march to reach roach adulthood. Enjoy full lives in the best ducts, behind the walls. A peerless plumber unfazed by human ingenuity. The scoured sink, the deadly spray, the incessant cleanliness next to godliness. I don't know where I've ever sent it, but that maybe to some southern. New York. All right. Now I'm going to have some new ones. This is one that has not seen the light of day yet, but it's fairly new. I'm going to read you 2 or 3 new ones, and then I'm going to conclude with the last poem in Six White Horses, which is title. This one is called On the Shelves of the Library in Leningrad. On the shelves of the library in Leningrad stand books spiffed up for browsing. Though dead bodies, uncatalogued librarians, swollen and smelly, sprawl on the floor and create literal stumbling blocks for patrons during the siege, the terrible winter of '41. The library is open. This is the year you were born, you avid reader, you, thousands of miles away, in time's unfathomable synchrony. You, of course, are bathed, pampered, and gently lifted into your life. And not for decades will you read of the burning, the sacking, the bread lines, and of the artist who fed herself with blue, who declared that by adding a sprig of laurel, the stuff tasted all right. Nor will you understand in 47 when your cousin comes home from prison camp, limping and silent, exactly where he's been and why. This will happen in a later season. Yet now, how satisfying to learn that then the Russians read Dickens for warmth. Perhaps they envisioned tea on the table, their toasty greatcoats hanging in the hall, for in that dreadful chapter, in that awful story, they slept in their clothes and whatever else they could pile on against the stiffening wind, the appalling cold. Well, I told a former student of mine who's not here, Butch Clay, that I would read one of my poems about crows. I have this endless fascination with crows and owls. No owl poems tonight, but crows. This is called The Keeper of Grudges. Can you believe crows hold grudges sometimes for years? We've long known that these sleek, baleful minions, darkly punctuating the sky, mourn their dead, can tie a fancy thread, follow us if they like us, and sometimes if not. And yet, they remember, as we likely do, the meanness they've borne. Their fledglings as well, a broom hurled as a weapon, a sharpshooter's aim, a shrieking invective of outrage or fear. Thus we who have wronged them search tree limbs and sky for any small signal of ambush or siege, their weaponized beaks taking aim, zooming in on our eyes, our noses, maybe our hearts. They strut and they hover in prideful disdain, as consumed as are we by unshakable rage. Memory, now resurrected, ruffles their wings, burns in their eyes those cold black beads of malicious intent. They're on us and at us, year after year, here now, there too, leaning into their murders, plotting their mischief, our very own avatars, casting their lots. I think it's a timely poem, actually. I won't go into politics, but we're seeing the end times, I do believe. All right. Now, more melancholy one about the death of a child, the death of a grandchild in this case. It's called Synchrony, just recently appeared in the Christian Century. You know, I have some poems in the Christian Century frequently, and I don't consider myself a Christian poet, you know, I mean, as such. But I am Christian, but I'm just not a Christian poet. You know? Oh, I've done it again. This is not my thing. Did you ever know that? Just like visuals. Okay, this is called Synchrony. Your old friend is scattering the ashes of her grandson into the lake where he liked to swim before fentanyl and his furtive nightlife. As you, speechless, consider Bruegel and that boy's legs engulfed by the sea, all that's left of his bravado, that precipitous fall. You know how the sun sets at different times, rises too, without you. The tides turn in and out, the rains wash, and the daylight dries. The foot never steps into the same river twice. The book reads us 100 ways, and we it. The painting and its memorable response, Musée des Beaux-Arts, both frame and provoke. Yet you find it comfortless, grim, but true. You want to offer consolation to your friend, but this poem or that one, you know, will lamentably never do. Okay, here's one that's hot off the press, and then one more, and then one more. This is a scene. Well, it's not so silly, it's serious because it's about my childhood and I expect some of you are going to relate to it. In the beginning, cowboys. My father, who knew all there was to know, said the chase scenes on horseback were all sped up, that no horse could gallop that fast. Look at the passing scenery and you'll see. Yet I didn't doubt the story, nor the gunshots, nor the silver bullet. Television, almost as young as we were then, came on about supper time on a small screen, a gritty black and white image, terrific. The neighbors gathered round to watch the test pattern and wait for the cowboys. The good guys in white hats, all except for Hoppy, in starkest black on his lovely white horse, Topper. Gabby Hayes, a kind of toothless Sancho Panza, was along for the ride and some good laughs. Week after week, we rode and killed and got killed and carried our battles into our own backyard. In the final episode, Hoppy at last kissed the girl in a sealed lip exchange, just before she died. We cried. He gave her that much. He gave us everything. Okay, I'm going to conclude with the title poem of Six White Horses, hoping my scratchy voice will become more resonant. This is the title poem, and most of you probably understand the allusion. Shall I sing it for you? No. Somebody wrote me on Facebook and said, my mother used to sing me that song all the time, and I said, well, so did mine. Probably so did yours. Six White Horses. First, let's explore the route, the rattling mountain road, the steep pass, the weather. Let's uncover what word goes ahead, if any, to herald that small, solitary figure in the driver's seat. Let's discover whose practiced hands grip the reins, whose boots jam the buckboard, whose scarf and of what color snaps like a flame of resolve against the horizon when the wagon's emptied out of apples, corn, cast-offs, or full of pilfered treasure bending the bone-dry boards. And why we crowd here by the road, ready to break into song. If we understand all to come, those slivers of gold and the cold, wet nights when we'll watch childhood diminish behind us. If we, our heads turned only one way, see her coming round the mountain, her arrival having nothing to do with the church or signifying the chariot of salvation, nor the ecstasy of orgasm, nothing to do with that. Then we, on tiptoe, facing east, will see at a distance her approach, her shouts startling the air, and just above the horses' heads, our mother's triumphant face. Thank you. My old friend Barry Moser and I may collaborate on something. And he did the cover of my he did the wonderful cover of my so wonderful book, Flannery O'Connor, The Obedient Imagination. We've been in touch. I just admire his work so much. Some of you own some of his work. He was here at the 1994 O'Connor Symposium, which was a big blast. Bruce has done some wonderful ones, but that was our big one. There were 500 people from 30 states, 5 foreign countries, in little Villageville in 1994. Remember that? Some of you do. It was exciting.
I'd love to know more about the structure and how you decided that your 3 different categories and how to place the poems under them.
Oh, you mean how, the order of the poems?
Yes, yes.
Some of my writer friends in Athens and I talk about these things a lot. How do you know? You know, the second book I had, I put all my poems on the floor. I lived in Hillsville, no, this was my first book. I was living in middle school, but all my poems on the floor. And then I began to see what similarities they had. And I restack them, repile them. This one and the preceding one, The Lost Thing, which came out 3 years ago. It's more of a continuity of theme, but my poems are sometimes dense, and sometimes they're dark. They're often dark. I have friends who who write wonderful, happy, beautiful, light, inspirational poems, and I don't intend to be that way. I'm just an old Calvinist from North Carolina who's been, and Catholic and other things. So I tend to have difficulty separating the categories. You know this because you're a writer now. Anybody else who's a writer in here can speak up to that. I mean, Sanford's done some work, haven't you, with your essays and stories? Yeah, it's a toughie. It's a toughie. Sometimes books just naturally fall into categories, but my things tend to overlap. And of course, you don't want to have all your long, heavy poems together. That's obvious. You don't want to have all, your light and fantastic, like Roach poems. I have a friend who adores this Roach poem, and every time there's a thing in Athens where you have to bring something, she says, "Can I take the Roach poem?" So it has a kind of underground fame. Roaches do.
Was your father really an interlocutor?
Yes.
Mine was too.
Yes, and I know there are a lot of people, we're talking about the first part of Astonishing Impersonations, which is, minstrel shows. It was in our high school, and they did sit on bleachers, and my father wore a tuxedo, and he was the interlocutor. And, we just mindlessly went to these things. And, I look back and I think, God, how horrible. How horrible. Yes?
What exactly is
What is what?
an interlocutor?
Oh, well, the interlocutor was the one person in this minstrel show who would sit over on the front, on the side. He was the white person, and he would be the questioner of the people in the minstrel show. And he would ask them a question and read over English, and unfortunately, it would come black and come back in black. The way the poem ends, the first part of this poem is. It's disgraceful, it's horrible, but somebody needed to write about it, so I just decided I would. It was an impersonation, and I began to think about all the impersonations that we are involved in life.
Well, you have to write about it now to preserve a little history before it's all gone.
That's right, and it may be all gone. The way things are going, kids. I'm a member of and some of you may know this, I'm a member of a group called Writers for Democratic Action. And we are taking steps to try to ensure the integrity of this democracy and free speech. I mean, it's and I don't want to get into this, but it is absolutely frightening. Anybody who's not watching, you're crazy. I mean, this is serious.
I think you're probably in a friendly crowd.
Yeah.
I hope so.
We came to hear you, so yeah.
But what is more frightening to me than the head guy there is all these supporters that voted him in. I mean, what did Sarah, we kind of talked about this. We failed in our work, in our lifelong work.
I know. I sometimes write in some of you heard me say this. I spent almost 40 years teaching English at various levels. And of course, when we all started out as English teachers, we taught freshman English up the wazoo with great newspapers and thought we were going to save literacy and save the critical thinking and all this. And then you see people interviewed on TV and people voting for a simpleton, and you can't understand it. You say, what did I failed? It's so nasty, and
It's like you're reading a book, but a dystopian book.
on a shelf and go to sleep, right?
Sarah, Barry Moser wants you to know he's watching online.
Oh, tell him hello. He's a dear friend and he's a wonderful artist. Some of you know him. When, in the '94 conference, we had a great exhibition of his work over in the Marler House. And all the writers that he has done portraits of, including Flannery and Faulkner and just a whole bunch of people. Anyway, extremely talented.
And then the Bible.
Oh, and his illustration of the Bible, which I cherish, you know, he illustrated the Bible.
He's illustrated a bunch.
Yeah, yes, he's now, I think he won't mind if I say, he's now working on a Cormac McCarthy novel. He's a good Southern boy, but he lives in Massachusetts right now. But he loves to come to Georgia College, and he, several times, he has donated the images we have used on posters and T-shirts for the conferences. If you have a, you know, a 1994 T-shirt or whatever, Barry did it. And Barry offered them to us. He's a great guy. So Barry, do you hear me?
How did you feel about the article in the New Yorker?
Oh, that was a fun day. I had a good time. This was the article in Talk of the Town in the New Yorker. Bruce and I were invited to meet with this wonderful Charles Buffet, who writes the Southern things usually, not all the Southern things, but many Southern stories. And Charles is delightful. And we came on the rainiest day in the world, maybe 3 weeks ago. And we toured with Charles and his crew. And we went to the Klein House, Flannery's home, you know, over here on Green Street. Of course, it was pouring rain, and I was carrying my cane, trying to get around, keep up with all the young 40-year-olds. But we had a great time. It was like going into a Faulkner story. You know, we could just see Miss Emily Grierson lying on the bed somewhere. But it's a mess. But the college now owns it, so the college is going to have to, you know, redo it. But it was fascinating. I hadn't been in there in probably 20 years when Regina was still alive, maybe longer than 20 years. And it was, you know, well kept, but Louise Florencourt did not live in the whole house. She lived in 3 or 4 rooms. So it was like walking back in time in a way. There was sheet music on the dining room table, Catholic hymns, and there was there were all these gowns, I guess they were Regina's gowns, like evening gowns in the downstairs closet. So we all had to go and feel whatever the thing was, and talk about those. And they were like 19th century gowns. And then we went into what was the old living room. There was a grand piano there, which the first time I ever went in that house was in 1968. And Regina had, you know, she hosted gatherings. It was a lovely home. But it was not kept up that way. So we went in the dining room, there's the piano, just stuff everywhere. Well, they all wanted to go upstairs to the attic where Flannery had gone to paint. Well, Miss Cripple thought, I can't climb up there. So I had already talked and chatted, said a few things I probably shouldn't have, but so I excused myself because I had to drive back to Athens. So my comments were, I think it was Ron who said to me, when he read it, he said, "This sounds exactly like you." But I said, "That movie, Wildcat, I refuse to see it."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, why is that?" I said, "Because it's not right. It's not right." And I said, Laura Linney was on national television saying that Regina had showed such discrimination because she had sent her daughter north to college. She didn't send her daughter north. Her daughter went to school right here. Those people didn't even come here to see the college, the farm, anything. It was Ethan Hawke's fever dream. So I had to, you know, so I think that was the part that Ron said it sounded. No, I really enjoyed being with Charles Bethea. He is a wonderful writer and a sensitive soul, and his mother is a very, very active Georgia woman in conservation. Sally Bethea, you may know her, she's part of the Chattahoochee River works and so forth. So they're a very outdoorsy, environmentally aware family. Anyway, it was fun.
And didn't Flannery sent things sometimes to the New Yorker and what?
Flannery was never published.
But she sent things, didn't she?
Yeah, well, she certainly sent her cartoons all through high school. And you can clearly tell the influence of Thurber on her cartooning.
So now you and Flannery have been published in the New Yorker.
You know, I had a dream when I was a young writer. I had this dream. I've never said this before. I had this dream that I opened up the New Yorker and I looked at the table of contents, and under poetry, there was my name.
The
Dream
roach.
on, girl. Dream on. It was the roach. It was the roach. So anybody else? We have refreshments, and I'll sign some books if you
We
yes.
have a comment from online. Karen Cassinger says she sends her gratitude. It's wonderful to hear the poems read aloud by Sarah. They're alive on the page, but become fully alive in the hearing. So she says thank you.
Well, I apologize for the frog in my throat, you all, and I usually, you know. Thank you, Karen Cassinger. She's an Athenian. We know her, don't we?
Sarah, this is just a comment, but I grew up in Rome, Georgia, and my dad writes poetry, still does. My grandfather did as well. And as a little girl, I went with him to Little Rome, Georgia, to the writer's room, and I heard community members making poems. And I've loved
Wonderful.
poetry all my life, and this is special for me. So thank you.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. Thank you. You're great. So wonderful experience for you as a young person.
It's huge, and I think the thing that I was thinking of as you write your poems is how my daughters would feel about your poems.
Good. I hope they'll like them.
I think they will.
They're not easy. I know that.
They're not, but they're important.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Shall we break for signing and refreshments and visiting and so forth?